What would you do if 7 million rounds of ammunition didn't just go missing but were stolen in what appears to be one of the most sophisticated and coordinated robberies in recent memory? This wasn't a case of mislabeling or a logistical slip-up. This was a full-blown strategic theft. 2 trucks, loaded with enough ammo to equip a battalion, were ambushed and stripped clean in what can only be described as a textbook operation. These trucks were transporting a legal load of various calibers 5.56, 40 Smith and Wesson, 22 long rifle straight from Aguila's manufacturing plant in Mexico, heading for Texas. But before they could reach the U.S. border, they were intercepted. The cargo was taken, the trucks were abandoned, and the entire incident was executed without a single bullet fired. Now, imagine this happening on American soil, 7 million rounds vanishing on I-10 or I-35. The media would explode. Government agencies would be all over it. But because this happened in Mexico, the silence is deafening. And here's where things get complicated. For years, Mexico has criticized the U.S. for the flow of firearms into their country. They've even filed billion-dollar lawsuits against American gun manufacturers. But let's flip the script. Mexico just lost a massive shipment of ammo that was headed out of the country. So who's really fueling the problem? Let's dive deeper. What exactly happened during this robbery? Here's what we know. The stolen ammunition came from Aguila, one of the most prominent ammo producers in Mexico. 2 delivery trucks left their facility, loaded to the brim. Along the route, armed men stopped them, but there was no shootout, no injuries, no chaos. The robbers were calm, efficient, and clearly informed. They took everything and vanished. Days later, authorities located the trucks, but the cargo? Completely gone. So what was inside? Most of it consisted of 5.56 NATO round standard issue for both civilian and military rifles. Then there were 40 caliber rounds, commonly used by police and security personnel. Add to that some 22 long rifle and other miscellaneous calibers. In total, 7 million rounds wiped from existence. Here's where it gets even more suspicious. Only 2 trucks were targeted. Out of the countless cargo shipments traveling Mexican roads every day, how did the thieves know exactly which ones to hit? This screams insider knowledge. Someone on the inside had to tip them off, knew the timing, the cargo, and how to pull it off without resistance. No firefight, no arrests. Just 2 trucks worth of ammo gone. And no one seems eager to ask the hard questions. And here's the real kicker. If those 7 million rounds weren't headed for store shelves in Texas, but instead end up arming criminal factions, who takes responsibility? Right now, Mexico's busy pointing fingers at U.S. firearm manufacturers, holding them accountable for cartel violence. But their own ammunition supply chain just dumped millions of rounds into the shadows. So the question is, where did that ammo really go? And who's profiting from it? Now, this is where things get especially twisted. While Mexico is tying up U.S. gun makers in court, accusing them of fueling the bloodshed in their streets, their own ammo factories are leaking product into the black market like a broken faucet. They're busy serving lawsuits while ignoring the gaping holes in their own security. 7 million rounds were hijacked on Mexican soil, and it's highly unlikely they'll end up in civilian hands. Let's be honest, if this exact robbery happened in the U.S., it would be breaking news. You'd see emergency briefings, federal agents on the scene, and a full-blown national investigation. But because it happened in Mexico? Silence. Shrugs. Maybe a short news blip, then it disappears, just like the ammo. Here's what doesn't add up. Mexico keeps blaming American companies, saying the firearms crossing the border are responsible for the violence tearing through their country. But they rarely mention how their own infrastructure is getting picked apart from the inside ammunition plants being exploited. Shipments vanishing mid-route, and not a single lead in sight. You can't keep throwing stones when your own glass house is collapsing. And let's not pretend this is some isolated fluke. This isn't a one-off robbery, it's part of a bigger trend. Mexico manufactures a huge volume of ammunition, and too often, it's winding up in cartel arsenals. If we're going to have a serious discussion about the flow of firepower in North America, then we need to stop looking at just the guns. Guns don't function without bullets, and if Mexico can't lock down its own ammo, how can it keep blaming the US? For the chaos? Here's the real twist. We're always told that American guns go south and fuel cartel violence. But now we're seeing something different: Mexican ammunition flowing north. The whole narrative gets flipped. You can't say you're being victimized while your own supply lines are helping to fan the flames. And the craziest part of all? There's no real manhunt, no big push to recover the stolen rounds, no high-level task force, no official urgency, just 7 million rounds gone. And we're supposed to believe they won't wind up in the wrong hands? Please. If you think those bullets aren't already stockpiled in some cartel warehouse, you're fooling yourself. This is the hypocrisy no one wants to talk about. Mexico is quick to point the finger at American gun makers, but maybe it's time they take a hard look inward and fix the gaping cracks in their own system. Now let's rewind and break down how this operation went down, because the more you examine it, the clearer it becomes. This wasn't random. This was a coordinated precision hit. 2 trucks, full of military-grade ammo, moving through Mexico, intercepted with surgical accuracy. The attackers didn't hit just any shipment. They went straight for the target, took exactly what they wanted, and disappeared. No struggle, no casualties, no evidence. You expect me to believe this was dumb luck? That a random gang just happened to pick the right trucks at the right time with zero intel? No way. This was mapped out. Someone with access gave up the details: what the trucks were hauling, the departure schedule, the travel route. That kind of timing doesn't happen without someone on the inside pulling strings. Let's shift gears and talk about Aguila ammunition. This isn't some mom and pop workshop, it's one of Mexico's largest ammo producers. So how does a company of that scale just lose 7 million rounds without even a hint of resistance? No armed escorts? No GPS tracking? No emergency response? That's not just a lapse in protocol, that smells like a setup from the inside. Think about it. If a cartel wants to build up its firepower, smuggling bullets across the US border is one option, but it's messy. You've got to dodge customs, surveillance, and law enforcement. Or you can make one clean move inside Mexico, with help from someone embedded in a major ammo manufacturer. A quiet shipment goes off course, and suddenly the bad guys are stalked for months, maybe longer. No alarms, no red flags, just gone. What we're looking at isn't a simple robbery. This was an orchestrated operation. Somebody with internal knowledge, be it a corrupt employee, a compromised official, or even cartel operatives, helped pull this off. It wasn't a random attack. That ammo was guided straight into the wrong hands. And if you ask me where it all ended up, you already know: it's now fueling cartel firepower. So where's the outrage from Mexican authorities? Why aren't there investigations, arrests, or press briefings? Maybe they're overwhelmed. Or maybe they're willfully silent. Could be fear. Could be corruption, but either way, it's a glaring problem that nobody seems eager to solve. Now let's zoom out and look at the big picture. This theft isn't just about one shipment. It's a reflection of a much deeper issue. Mexico has spent years publicly blaming the US for its cartel violence, constantly pointing to the flow of American guns crossing the border. But here's what they don't want to acknowledge. Their own ammunition industry is helping fuel that very same violence. Because, let's face it, guns don't fire without bullets. So how can Mexico argue that US companies are responsible for cartel firepower when their own manufacturers are losing millions of rounds at a time? It's not just hypocritical, it's dangerous. This heist is part of a larger trend, a growing black market of weapons and ammunition that moves in both directions across the border. While Mexican officials file billion-dollar lawsuits against American gun makers, they turn a blind eye to their own internal failures: factories getting hit, convoys going missing, inventories quietly drained. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The arms trade isn't a one-way street. Yes, some American firearms end up in cartel hands. But increasingly, we're seeing Mexican-manufactured ammo and weapons being smuggled north into the United States. That's right, Mexico is now contributing to the very gun violence it's accusing the U.S. of enabling. So before pointing fingers, maybe it's time to look in the mirror, because the bullets flying through cartel territories aren't just American-made, they're also stamped Heco in Mexico. And here's why this should matter to every gun owner in the United States. When millions of rounds vanish without explanation, it doesn't just stay south of the border, it becomes political ammunition for anti-gun lawmakers right here at home. Events like this are exactly the kind of headlines they love to exploit. They'll use it to argue for more restrictions, tighter controls, and to push an agenda that impacts you and me, even though this entire mess started in another country. Rather than confronting the real issue, failure to secure their own weapons supply, Mexico keeps pointing the finger at the U.S. But the truth, the cartel violence they say they're trying to stop is being fueled by their own manufacturing industry. You can't cry foul and play the victim while your own ammo is walking out the back door. And this isn't just a story about Mexico, it hits home for every law-abiding firearm owner in America. Because here's what happens. A massive cache of ammunition disappears, no arrests, no answers, and suddenly politicians are on TV calling for tighter ammo laws and more federal oversight. They won't mention that this wasn't an American-made problem. They'll just say, ammo is ending up in the wrong hands, and use that as an excuse to come after your rights. Let's not forget, this shipment wasn't staying in Mexico, it was headed for the U.S. So now we've got a huge quantity of unaccounted for ammunition floating out there somewhere. Who's selling it? Where's it going? What's it being used for? No one's saying. And when something goes wrong, don't be surprised if that blame lands squarely on U.S. gun owners. That's why staying informed isn't optional, it's necessary. We have to keep speaking up, pushing back, and reminding our elected officials that law-abiding Americans shouldn't pay the price for failures happening across the border. Because make no mistake, incidents like this become political leverage. And the more silent we are, the easier it becomes for politicians to chip away at our freedoms. So let's run it back. 7 million rounds, gone. A suspiciously clean operation. No resistance, no answers. Just a factory in Mexico bleeding ammo that very likely ends up arming the criminals they claim to be fighting. Yet here they are, still blaming American companies, still ignoring their own responsibility, and still acting like they're innocent bystanders. What do you think? Was this inside job pulled off with cartel coordination? Was that ammo always destined to bypass the border and hit the black market? And why isn't this all over the news? Let me know in the comments. I want your take on it. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. We've got a lot more content coming your way, and you're not going to want to miss it. As always, stay sharp, stay aware, and stand up for your rights.